We're thrilled to welcome Dennis Rollins, a passionate performer and educator. Dennis Rollins, MBE, has established a reputation as an artist of excellence and has lent his unique and stylish talent to the world's top jazz and pop personalities. Born in Birmingham of Jamaican parents and raised in Bentley, Doncaster, he attended Don Valley High School. When he was 14 years old, he joined the Doncaster Youth Jazz Association, and he studied and performed with them for some years before moving to London in 1987. Dennis has recorded, performed and toured with a host of the best musicians and bands in jazz and pop. In 1995, he formed his own jazz funk band, D-Row, which he performed at such venues as Jazz Cafe, Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club, the London Forum and Brixton Academy. In 2000, he formed the quintet, Dennis Rollins Bad Bone & Co., launched at the Barbican Centre in March of that year, again specialising in funk-inflected jazz. In 2005, he formed Boneyard, an ensemble featuring 10 trombones, sousaphone and drums. The band performed a series of live gigs throughout the UK, as well as a performance on BBC Radio 3. Boneyard featured British jazz trombonists Barnaby Dixon, Matt Coleman, Julian Heppel, Andy Derrick, Kevin Holborough, Harry Brown and Lee Hallam, with Andy Grappy on sousaphone. Current members of Bad Bone & Co. are Jay Phelps on trumpet, Johnny Hayes on guitars, Courtney Thomas on bass, Ross Stanley on keys, and Jack Pollitt on drums. Dennis is an artist clinician for Michael Rath trombones, and for those trombone nerds like me, his personal instrument is a yellow brass nickel silver Rath R3. His jazz funk outfit, Bad Bone & Co., won the prestigious BBC Jazz Award for Best Band, and Dennis picked up Trombonist of the Year at both the British Jazz Awards and Ronnie Scott's Jazz Awards. Dennis was nominated twice in the 2008 Parliamentary Jazz Awards for Jazz Musician of the Year and winning the Jazz Education Award. His other awards include the British Trombone Society Player of the Year 2013 and Jazz Yorkshire Award for 2012 for his band Velocity Trio. In the 2018 Queen's Birthday Honours list, Dennis was awarded an MBE for services to music. In his hometown of Doncaster, Dennis was given honorary Freedom of the Borough and recognition of a successful musical career and for his constant inspiration to musical youth. As a sought-after jazz educationalist, Dennis delivers a wide range of music workshops, working in collaboration with music departments of universities, colleges and schools throughout the world. Wow, Dennis, that is quite a list. That's already a life well led.
Well, I'm trying to work out who this guy is you're talking about, you know?
He sounds amazing. I'd love to meet him. Dennis, one of the things that came through, you know, when I was looking at my record collection and thinking about you is how you talk with such affection about your dedicated teacher and the person that kind of nurtured you through your development. Could you maybe should we start off with by telling us a little bit about that influence and how it affects the way you think and feel about your teaching now?
Yes, well, when I first started playing, if I can go right back to the beginning, I have a brother called Winston who started playing a couple of years before me. I used to go and watch him play. Now, from there, I was sort of, I became a little jealous and decided I wanted to learn the trombone. And my first trombone I got was given to me by a man called Mr. John Ellis at the Doncaster Youth Jazz Association. And that was after Winston got his brand new one. I got the old beat up one with a slide that didn't work properly, really. John Ellis went on to become my mentor for you know, and in my view, still is my mentor for quite some time, taking me through all of my early jazz education. The Jazz Association itself comprised of a stage band, an intermediate swing orchestra and a senior jazz orchestra, all ranging from the ages of 12 to all the way to 17, 18. And I went through the whole of that system and all of the associated offshoots of that. So I really influenced incredibly, and I'm very grateful for the influence of John Ellis because he's played a big part of my life. in my education and outlook, and more importantly, you know, in the enthusiasm and, you know, showing me how to work with young children, and, you know, just sharing a passion for this great music of playing the trombone, you know.
So, in addition to that kind of musical influence he had on you, do you feel that perhaps there was a bit of a kind of moral and ethical development that he helped you to go through? I know with my own teacher, that sense of kind of who you are as a person is just as important.
Absolutely, and I think what's really important is the fact that he developed, or he continues to develop all students, and looking more at the person. So develop the individual and nurture the talent, and that's really sort of even an unspoken moral way of going about teaching. And I believe that, you know, we get students into a room and we obviously put them through their paces with compassion, but at the same time it's see the person and just put the instrument aside for a moment and just see who the person is, and then you'll see exactly where they are in their stage of development within the education of playing an instrument. So see the person and then attach the instrument.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've got a jazz trombonist, Peter Johnson, who's an MA jazz trombone player, and I know he's a great fan. He's dying to ask you. I think he's got 3 questions actually. So, should we bring Peter in?
Yes, please.
Great.
Hi, Dennis. Great to see you again. How are you doing?
Great to see you. How are you keeping yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad at all. My first question, which I'd love to ask, and it's about your Velocity Trio albums.
Yes.
When I first heard those, they absolutely blew my mind because they were so different to anything I'd ever heard before, and they were so exciting. And I wondered if you could sort of go over some of the influences and compositional processes that helped that sound come together.
Yes. The inspiration, if I can say, the inspiration for firstly putting the trio together was it came from a need to move away from funk music, from playing funk for years, and sort of explore an approach to improvisation which gave much more freedom. And that was the absolute initial reason for starting a jazz straight ahead based band. I wanted, though, to also fuse all of the influences that I'd had. So it was sort of hard to get away from that element of groove and funk. So I decided I wanted straight ahead to be the constant thread throughout that, and add all of my influences from growing up in Yorkshire, playing in brass bands, to the influence of my parents who came from Jamaica in the early 60s, playing the music, you know, incorporating the music that they were influenced by, you know, the reggae and the ska and all of those influences. Now, when I put the band together, it was a beautiful thing to meet the musicians who were in the band. Pedro Segundo on percussion and drums, and Ross Stanley on Hammond organ. I wanted musicians who could think absolutely out of the box. I wanted to be crazy in the compositional approach. And I just let my mind run absolutely free with the compositions, and it was more through composing as opposed to thinking of the standard forms of AABA and, you know, and moving into absolutely unknown territory for the trombone. So the element of surprise in the composition was key, and you know, it was just a lot of fun to explore the trombone as a lead instrument.
How did you, the other thing I'm really curious about it is the sort of timbral side of it, like dealing with the organ. I quite like playing with organ myself, but I always feel like I get a bit lost in certain registers. So how you sort of got around that, and then also the effects pedals, how you, did you have those sounds in your heads before you started experimenting, or was it as sort of organic, like you were saying the composition process was?
Well, I'll deal with the pedals first. When I first put the funk band together, way back in 1995, my first funk band, as Kevin said, it was called D-Row. And my influence for that was a trombone player. I'm going to pronounce it wrong, and I'm going to get told off for pronouncing it. Raul de Souza, a Brazilian trombone player who was absolutely beautiful with a big boisterous sound, and his whole approach was very lyrical, very legato in his style, but big scoops, and he used pedals, guitar pedals, and in particular a pedal called an octave divider, which basically gave the trombone a voice an octave lower. That was my big influence for pedals. And I just developed a voice from 1991 where I incorporated that into the bands that I played in and more the bands that I put together. So the pedals developed to the stage where I had probably 30 guitar pedals all around the house, just trying to see what worked and trying to feel what could give me a different voice, what could make the trombone have that something different. So that's where that started, and I simply took that into Velocity. Now, talking about the trombone in the combination of Hammond organ and drums, it was quite an exciting time, because I wrote I think it was 9 songs, 9 compositions, and I took them to the band. Now I'm all for not being precious about composition and working with musicians. So I like to write what I know for an instrument and give it to the musician and allow them to take it somewhere else. That's within the jazz context. Allow them to take it somewhere else. They know the instrument. They know where to take it. What I didn't figure on the frequencies. Just as you say, you know, I played the trombone, and I played the trombone very comfortably in the mid-register. And suddenly I'm presented with a Hammond organ who's playing all of the bass stuff on the left hand. He didn't use the foot pedals like some do. He played everything on the left hand, and his comping, all of his accompaniment was on the inside with splashes of melody, and all the melodies in the higher octave, in the alto range. So my melodies for trombone were written in the area of the comping. So I was sort of in the mud with him. And it was quite incredible that, you know, after 3 rehearsals, I said, I've got to go away and totally think about the whole approach to where the trombone absolutely fits in. I mean, we have so many examples of the organ trio with Hammond organ, drums, and a lead instrument. Now that's normally, or as it's been presented, a guitar or trumpet or saxophone. So it was sort of a new territory for me and for that voice. So I had to rewrite so many of the melodies and think of them more in the alto range and sort of the upper alto range, in order for there to be the pyramid of sound, for there to be, if you like, drum cymbals on the top end, moving down to trombone, moving down to Hammond organ mid-range, and the bass end with the left hand of the organ. So I had to rethink and think pyramid, and that was the change that made all of the difference, really.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. We've got a question from Nicholas Smith, who's one of our BMOS brass players. Nick, are you there?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Nick.
What inspired you to pursue a career in jazz rather than a classical trombone player?
It's just the influences around me, Nick. You know, when I first started, as I said, I started with brass bands. I also had the access to Saturday morning orchestras, and that was a great experience for me. Unfortunately, it didn't. I'm not in any way saying it wasn't inspirational. It was inspirational in a different kind of way. I think the music at the time, I didn't have exposure to classical music as a youth, so a lot of my influences were stemming from what my parents played, the reggae music, and even going back, reggae, ska, and mento. So my influences came from that direction. Now, when I was exposed to classical music, it was simply on a Saturday morning in the space of 3 hours, and I'd sit there for 28 bars and play 2 notes, and then sit there for 68 bars and play 2 notes. Now, that's not in no way a bad thing to say that classical didn't inspire me, you know. But I found myself very excited by jazz and improvisation. Even pretty early on, I found myself really wanting to play in my own space, in my own practice routines, play and try to play a melody that I clearly couldn't play. So my influences were just from the people around me and from, you know, the culture that was surrounded, that I was surrounded in.
Dennis, is there anything outside of the musical world that inspires you musically?
Yes, that inspires me musically. On a very simple level, if I can take it right back to where I am now at home, you know, I'll sit in the garden and I'll listen to the birds sing. I'll listen to the blackbirds. I'll sit in the evenings and wait for the blackbirds to start singing. And you know, the freedom of rhythm and beautiful melody, that inspires me. And you know, again, you know, I feel very fortunate to have so much, just to have so much of so much sound, if I can put it that way, so much sound that isn't actual musical instruments, but just the sound of life. I get inspired by that. The sound of what's happening in my garden, I'll be totally inspired by that. Be it a pneumatic drill 10, you know, half a mile away that I can hear in the distance, creating a rhythmic pattern, that will inspire me. So I try and just listen to just what's around me on an everyday level, and try and, you know, find the music in just walking down the street, for instance.
Yeah, music's about life, isn't it? You know, it's like sometimes I think we fall into the trap maybe that thinking that life is about music, but for me it's kind of the other way round.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's really important to put music in its rightful place, and it's a different place for everybody. I know everybody has a different intensity and a different way they process and deal with music within the context of everything that happens in their life. You know, for a long time, I used to always, you know, for a long time I would say, music is my life, and music is, you know, and I remember so many times thinking that music is my life. Then you get a few experiences in life and a few things happen, and you see what's important, and you say, okay, where does this fit into this? Where does that experience fit into my life as a musician? And then you learn how to prioritize what needs to be prioritized in that moment. And I'm so happy. I'm at a real happy point now, because I found that balance of where music fits in. And sometimes it's more intense than simply watching the birds feed each other. Sometimes it's, you know, but sometimes that life takes over, and it's fine to put the trombone down. It's fine to just sit there and see what's going on. So it's really important to find the balance of where you fit in, or where music fits into life, you know.
Yeah. We've got a great triple load of questions from Andrew Wingham, who's B-3. These are cracking questions, so brace yourself. Andrew, are you there for us?
Yeah, I'm here. I'll just turn my video on. Yeah. I've just got a couple of questions. So we all have good days and bad days, but sort of how do you get over, say, a bad day of playing, or like, say, mentally you might not be in the right space for your performance? How do you get back on the horse for the next session?
Yes. Well, if we're looking at practice, I treat practice and I treat the gigs different. Looking at practice, if I find that my head is in the wrong space, I don't pick the trombone up. What I do is I try and find something associated with associated with the music, so I can still give the time. I can still have a focus on music, but just make a slight diversion. I'm here. I've got my studio here, so I'm able to simply, you know, compose something, even if it's just something that is 4 bars long, and just file it to come back to it. Just divert yourself. Put the trombone down, for instance. Put your instrument down and go and do something else. You'll find that having even a short break within your practice routine, if it's not working, you know, don't hammer it. Take yourself away, you know. And as I said before, I'm a believer in nature and just being outside and just feeling what's going on with the rest of life. You know, now looking at your performance, it's a very difficult thing when you've got to switch it on for a performance and you're not feeling it. Now, in those instances, it's really important that prior to an important performance, which every gig really is an important event, that you find a silent space for yourself and just literally sit, for instance, in a room in calm, and just listen to you know, why you're having that bad day, or why you're having a bad moment. 9 times out of 10, it's just simply a fear. It's a fear of your performance and then you break it down again. The fear is, you know, fear of what people will think of your playing if you're not feeling on top of it. You know, I tend to break it down to, I'm fearful of something. What am I fearful of? I'm fearful of what people are going to think of me. So what's the worst that could happen? Well, that, you know, someone in the audience potentially could be wanting to give me some work, and they're probably going to. It breaks it down to the basics. So the important thing is, you're not feeling good about it. Take yourself into a quiet space and just breathe and think through why you're not feeling on top of it. If it is a physical thing, then you know what it is. But 9 times out of 10, there's an underlying silence. Just being in your own space is an important thing. Now, how do you get out of that? You really have to analyze and tell yourself, and you have to tell yourself, what's the worst that can happen to me if I play wrong notes tonight? What's the worst that can happen to me if my chops or what I'm doing don't come out the way I want it? And if you really analyze it, nothing. we all make mistakes. We're all not perfect. You know, the greatest musicians make mistakes, and it's all right. You know what I mean? It's like the bigger picture. It's all right. We want to improve as young musicians, and we want to get it right. And, you know, the competition isn't with everyone else. You've got to have an internal competition with yourself. Yes, when we understand that nature of wanting to impress others, but that can be, I'm not saying destructive. It can be destructive if you allow it to run away with you and run away with your mind. It's a thing that you've got to simply look at the competition as with yourself, and, you know, don't fight yourself. If it's not feeling great, accept it. Accept that it's not feeling great tonight. I'm simply going to do my best. If it doesn't work out, lightning isn't going to strike me down. And,
yeah,
and
that's great.
you find that space. Sorry to interrupt you. Find that quiet space and just sit with yourself and just breathe. You have to close the door on everyone and just be in your own space and just listen to yourself. And you'll find that your heart rate will reduce. You'll see everything in a much different light.
Yeah, thank you for that. As that kind of covers my second question. So I think I'm going to ask you a different question, which sort of feeding on from that. I find myself, when I suffer with the anxiety,
Yeah.
I go back to sort of the why I play, the why I do things. Is that kind of what you would think about in that silent time?
Well, you know, the anxiety is an important. I say it's an important part. Obviously, with to certain degrees, a little bit of anxiety before you play can give you a little bit of a push to say, "I'm going to try and get it. I'm going to get it this time." Now, it's when the anxiety starts to take over your rational thinking. And again, at that point is when you need to get out, and you need to, again, take those moments out. And now, I get anxious, and, you know, even now, I get anxious on stage. There are certain, I'm not going to tell you who they are, but there are certain composers who compose such beautiful, beautiful, rich music, really intricate and really, and, you know, I want to give it my utmost best. I want to give it all I've got. And there are times when I will miss a chord progression in the improvisation. There'll be times when I don't quite make that triplet run to the high C, but comes right back down to the low G flat, and I'll kick myself and I'll say, you did all that you could in that time, in that moment. Okay. And the important thing to remember, Andy, at that point, the moment's gone.
Yep.
With anxiety, if you play wrong notes, if you miss pitch, if your production isn't where you want it to be for that moment, do your best. But always remember, if you make mistakes, the moment's gone. As soon as you've done it, it's gone. So there's no fixing that. So what's the worst thing that can happen? You know, I think the problem that we have, and especially as young musicians, is we want to do our best because we want to show everyone else, our peers, that we're on it. And sometimes we're not, and that's just human. We have to accept that, okay, today I'm not on it. I'm not on the case today. I had a tough day today. So that, you know, and you have to use that experience to say, okay, what went wrong? Okay, my production wasn't quite right. Okay, 2 days before the next gig, I'm just going to sit and do note production practice and regulate my breathing. Okay, what else was wrong? My improvisation. What did I slip up on? Oh, I slipped on those diminished scales. Okay, I'm just going to sit and get my muscle memory a lot tighter and work on my diminished scales. Just so when the time comes, I'm just a little more prepared than maybe I was the last time. But the anxiety, always know that, you know, find your personal space, and also know that if you make mistakes, the moment's gone. No one's going to get you for it.
Yeah, that's really insightful, quite helpful. Just my final question, really, is well, when improvising, do you kind of rely on instinct within the moment, kind of hearing something and then playing it, or do you actually just think about the chord progression and thinking where you are within the chord? Yeah. What's your approach?
It comes from many directions. The aim is that I don't even read the chord progression. Sorry, that's the aim. That I've done enough. I played enough arpeggios. I played enough scales, and I've listened to enough instruments and vocalists to hear the progression and to instinctively hear it. Now, it's great when you get to that point that you can feel it and you can hear it, but obviously, as you're probably doing now, you're going through all of the arpeggios, all of the major, minor, seventh, and you know, the dominant, all of the accent. You're going through all of the nuts and bolts. It's important, and it's so important to go through that those exercises. But at the same time, and it's one that I find a lot of new students don't do, is listen. They don't listen to enough music. They don't, as an improviser, you have to listen to improvised music. But an important thing to do is not only listen to improvisers on the trombone or your instruments.
I play trumpet.
Don't only listen to trumpet players. It's so important to listen to all of the other instruments, right down to jazz cello, right down any other instrument other than trumpet, because what you'll find is there will be nuances that don't relate to the mechanics of the trumpet, for instance, that will give a different approach. And if you can, if there's an element that you really love, you can incorporate that into your own approach and have a different voice. You know, the aim of the improvisation for me is to try and find a different voice. It's not simply to get around chord changes, you know, and being a trombone player, my ultimate goal is to play like a vocalist sings, even within all of the ornaments and embellishments of jazz improvisation. I'm still trying now to perform improvisation and be as logical and be as lyrical as a vocalist would be singing. So then you're looking at a totally different mindset as opposed to simply playing scales and patterns. But it's also important, you know something, I get a lot of people approaching me for lessons and saying, "Hi Dennis, I really love you playing and I really want to learn how to play jazz like you." And I get into the lesson environment, and I realize what they really need to learn is how to navigate around their instrument in a logical and very even and methodical way. So I always suggest, forget jazz for a moment. Let's just work on, for instance, playing chromatics really smoothly and evenly, all the way up the scale and down all the way up to the top register, down to, so you've got this beautiful legato and you can navigate. Okay, let's take from there, let's take it to now we can start patterns. Now we can start simple patterns within a scale from, so a lot of the improvisation techniques stem from the standpoint of learning how to navigate yourself around your instrument. The muscle memory of certain scales, for instance. Just go over and over and over and over and over. Just be comfortable. Work until you're comfortable. then start listening. Really, I say then really start listening to other musicians. You know, do you play along with records, and do you play along? You know, you put a record. Listen to me, a record. Do you put?
There are resources on YouTube where people have already transcribed solos.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about.
Right.
Do you put a trumpet player? Who's your favorite trumpet player?
Sort of jazz style would be Clifford Brown.
Right. Do you put a Clifford Brown track on, and try and play along with it?
Just Stardust.
Right. That's good. That's good, and that's what you have to do, because you're training your ear to and your muscle memory to recognize where all of that is. Now keep repeating that and keep repeating it until you've got the whole thing down. Now you don't even have to have your trumpet in your hand. Listen to it, and as you listen to it, visualize yourself playing it. And you visualize yourself playing it in such a way that you almost emotionally connect with it, and that you can almost feel exactly where, and the only way you'll get this is by listening to it constantly. And that's an important thing, I think. You know, a lot of, you know, really good improvisers do. They listen to something so much that they can sing it, and if you can sing it, then you can start to try and find where it is on the fingering, and you're training the connection between brain and things, and you're just really working on that whole muscle memory, connecting the notes to the action. And so forget, I'm not saying forget, no, that's wrong to say. Don't forget reading transcriptions, and do transcribe things, but also spend time working with just playing along, simply playing along from what you hear. No written notes. And you'll find that once you get something, it's like, wow, I can feel that language. So do practice that. Spend time and do that.
Wise words, Dennis. I love that kind of lyricism and vocal quality in your playing, but I also love the energy and kind of bite that you have as well. And I know we've got a guy called Peter Richards, who's a B-4 bass trombonist, and he's a pretty funky player, and he's got a question for you, and I can't wait for him to ask it. So I've seen him around. Peter, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Peter.
Hi there. Yeah, you sort of touched on it with Andy's question in there a little bit. I'm just wondering, sort of, what would you say, sort of, like tips or advice about starting to transcribe jazz solos and pieces?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing, really. You know, it's important that, you know, it really is important that you do transcribe. And the first and foremost is, you know, find, I would say, 5 instrumentalists, be it again a player of any instrument, that you love what they do. That you absolutely love what they do, and take it from there. Then look at the qualities of each of those instrumentalists and say, okay, I love that area that this person covers. I love when he covers this area, and he does something like, and you just try and incorporate yourself into learning those qualities. And all you're doing then is building up your own vocabulary. And that's the most important thing. It's not anyone else's vocabulary, it's yours. So to put all of these instrumentalists into one big pot and just stir the pot, and it comes out within your playing, that's the aim. But just like I said, transcribe. Also, just listen and play. That's such an important point. To listen and play, even if it means, you know, you've got tools like the Amazing Slow Down the Amazing Slow Downer, which is an app that you can put a track into it. You can slow it down by 50%. Gosh, I wish I had that when I was 20, you know. But all of those tools are there to assist you. You can loop a point between A and B at your choosing and just go round and round, slow it down 50% and just learn it. But just learn it without writing it down. So you're developing your ear, you're developing that facility that if you go into a jazz club and someone says, we're going to play this tune, you don't know it. Well, how's it go? Well, it goes like this. Or you can pick it up a lot easier. So it's developing that inner ear. And you know, I think that's one of the most important things, is to develop that inner ear. You know, there are some great jazz musicians, and I seem to be coming across them more and more, that don't actually read music. And it's quite amazing to know they've had an incredible history and they don't read a note of music. And one of them is the great George Benson. I'm led to believe, and I'll say this, I'm led to believe from many sources that he doesn't actually read music, or he doesn't read music in any kind of fluent way. But listen to the richness of his playing. Listen to the richness of his emotion through the instrument, and it's initially born of listening and experimenting and finding a different way, you know. And that's the important thing, to find a way that is you as an individual, you as a personality, and to mold all of that. You only get that by listening to a lot of different people that excite you.
That's great. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you.
Hey Dennis, seeing we're in the world of the bass trombone, it seems like a good moment to bring Roger Argenti in. We were talking about you yesterday, and I know he's got something he wants to ask you, so I can see his smiling face there.
And there.
Hey, hi Dennis.
Hi.
Pre-COVID and lockdown, I could have still asked this same question about how do you see things improving there? And if I could just add a caveat to that question, how can we improve it, if you like, rather than how they can be improved? What can we do? Is the way that you've managed to sort of, you know, knock down the walls that would sort of virtually keep apart the brass band and the jazz world, or the orchestral world, or whatever, and just merge them together in a lovely flow. So, you know, there's that sort of two things in there, really, is that sort of fusion idea, and what can we do? I mean, because we are trying hard to work with the people, but this is going to make it even harder, what we're in at the moment.
Yes, it is. I mean, it is for the obvious reasons. And as you pointed out, you know, the funding for local community-based music centers, that we're going to be struggling for, I think, years to come. Because of COVID, I feel that we're going to be in such an enormous fight that we're going to have to basically pull regions as much as possible to in their communications and even in their activities, because just like we went through the sort of funding crisis as sort of after the financial crash, where suddenly all of the hubs, music hubs, were sort of formed, and all of the music establishments were sort of moving into a hub scenario. It's a thing that even more, in my view, even more so, we're going to be having to share a lot more. Is there an answer to it? I can't see where it's going right now, Roger, and it's scary. It's pretty scary. The one thing here in Doncaster is, you know, they're very fortunate, for instance, to own their building. They're very fortunate to they're still fighting with resources, and I'm sure, you know, still fighting with resources, as is anyone else, to keep things ticking over with all of the cuts. So you look at the enthusiasm of teacher-parent groups, more so the tutors, the heads of the music schools. It's going to become even more community based, in my opinion. That it's going to be such as the enthusiasm of someone like who we have here in Doncaster, John Ellis, who is absolutely staunch for jazz education with kids. It's going to be certain individuals who enthuse others to develop teams, to develop volunteers in order to basically try and keep the music alive, or keep the concept of performing on a stage alive. We've now, again, as you said, we've got a different scenario now where, look at us. So a lot of people are now making music online. So that's going to also feed the thoughts of, why do we have to have a real band? We can hear so much music online now. We can hear so many groups playing together. It's a crazy time, and there isn't any straight answer. If you have an idea or any thoughts, or if any of you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, because I feel that this is going to be our testing time now for enthusing our young, and enthusing, and the importance of youth music education. We're in for a tough ride, but we have to keep the enthusiasm, and if it falls on the shoulders of a few to sort of run around and smile and jump up and down, say, come on, let's do this, then we have to encourage those people.
Dennis, I think we'd like to join you in that fight. We would love to get you here to perform when our doors open again, and to really bring you into our family. Great.
I would really love to, and again, now it's not only important that performers just simply come and play. It's important that we do this, that we talk about how to keep music live. We talk about how to keep our young enthused, because there's so many distractions now. Even more so, the computers are sort of taking over. So we have to keep that realness, that sort of communication of. If in doing online lessons now, there's an element of communication that seems like it's slipping away. That one-to-one, I can hear the nuance and the spit of the instrument. I can hear exactly how you, and see exactly how you're breathing. I can feel how you feel, in terms of, I can sort of see a slight fear in how you're approaching this, so I can address that. Even in the education of music, it's all going to change, because don't get me wrong, I do love this on many fronts, but I don't want life to be in music to become just screens. I want it to maintain the sense of community within individuals. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's that personal connection, and I was thinking about this morning, that the way that technology can bring us together but keep us divided as well, and maybe it's kind of is a sense of family, isn't it? That you only by being in the room with each other.
Yes. But again, I think it's, I think it's up to us to try and keep pushing the importance, both emotionally, spiritually, and just the very simple sense of fun that music and performing together has, and what it does for a young person's mind. It's a confusing time, and I used to always use music and performing as my therapy, no matter what I was going through. There was this, and I look back at it and I see where I had that phrase, music is my life, because I knew that it was a constant. It was an absolute constant. But I've since learned that, You know, it was my sort of prop that I could hide behind if things were not right. And so I had to address that and slowly put the trombone down and face what I had to face, and be true to not having this prop. I mean, it's over there, right? It's like, just be true to the fact that I have to find a balance in life. I have to not play music sometimes. Some people don't have a choice. Some people have to put their instrument down and go and work in a supermarket and do shelves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But my point is, they'd love to be playing the instrument. So we have to address life and find that balance of okay, music can't be a part of what I do right now, but that's okay, because it's still there, and it's not going to lead me there, so it's not far away, you know.
Yeah. Dennis, you used that magical word fun, and we're coming sadly to the end of the session, but that means it's time for the fun five. We always ask 5 questions at the end of the session, and you're only allowed to choose one option from each question, and there are 5 of them. So are you on for this? I didn't warn you.
Of course I am.
Great. Okay. So question number 1, studio or concert hall?
Concert hall.
Question number 2, summer sun or winter wonderland?
Summer sun.
Me too. Question number 3, knowing you're from Doncaster, leather jacket or waterproof?
Waterproof.
Me too. Question number 4, brass band or big band?
Big band.
And my favourite question, question number 5, Duke Ellington or Stevie Wonder?
Ooh!
That's a toughie.
Why did you do this to me?
No, it's an evil one.
I'm going to answer that as truthfully as I can, because at the moment I'm having a love affair with Stevie Wonder music. Obviously, the passion of Duke Ellington and all of what he's given music and history is on an equivalent Stevie Wonder, what he's given. At the moment, today, right now, I'm going with respectfully with Stevie Wonder.
This has been such a magical hour, and you know, for me as well, on a personal level, I said this to you on the phone, but it's absolutely true. You're one of my great heroes. So thank you so much for this.
Well, thank you, and to everyone, you know, thanks for being here, and I'd love to see you all. And I look forward to shaking your hands at some point. Really look forward to that.
I'm going to give you a hug.
I'll absolutely accept that. Listen, thanks again.
Brilliant. Thank you so much from all of us.
Thank you, and see you soon.
You take care.
You too. Bye-bye for now.